All right. So in this presentation or workshop, we're going to talk about the Space Torus. And what is the Space Torus? Actually, the Space Torus is a formation, we could say, of the space and time field energies. So they interact with each other in a particular way when we have forces, when we have any kind of motion. It doesn't matter what kind of motion it is. It could be mechanical motion, it could be a signal or something that moves with the speed of light. Anytime you have any kind of motion, we will have a response from this space and time fields. In the first presentation, we called that is a corpuscular field. So this corpuscular field, it will have a certain response of the motion. So any kind of force, which is a vector force, which have a direction, okay, it will face this corpuscular field and it will create a certain response. And when this response is created, it will be in the form of a space torus. And it's very important for us to understand this because motion is something that is constant in life. Everything is in a constant motion. All right. So this space torus can be, once we fully understand everything, how it works, we can use it for mechanical aspects, for electrical aspects, but also for spiritual aspects, because our brain can actually guide and direct this kind of fields of space and time fields and create a different phenomena. So it's very important that it can be used in infinite application, the idea of a space torus. And also what is important is that it's equally valid for the big celestial bodies, for the general relativity, but also for the quantum mechanics, for the small particles like photons, electrons, and so on. It's the same principle, the same direction. It just have slightly different aspects, but the direction are the same. So in the first slide I prepared, we're going to see a quote from the book, which can be a little bit confusing or complicated, but our job is to debunk this kind of information. So in the book of Alchemical Manual, they say that the space and time field energy, it's like a systems. The systems are discussed to enable person to envision, to imagine interfunctioning octaves of energy and the way octaves connect to a vertical points of intersection within a corpuscular field that fill all space and time. So this statement looks very complicated, maybe confusing, but the most important thing is to understand that we are talking about an octaves of energy which are nested within themselves, and also vertical points of intersection. We will see in a while. So they put the emphasis. They put the emphasis of the space field, which we cannot see, and we also cannot measure it. Maybe in our reality, the most reliable way to measure the space field, because it's like a pressure, it's using a barometer, but it's not precise. It's just can give us a glimpse to measure the atmospheric pressure. This is a barometer. It's a device that measures the atmospheric pressure. Because the space field is usually in a spatial sphere of pressure, we can use a barometer, but just to have some clue. More precise instruments we need in order to measure actually the space field. So in our body, we have different vortices. Those vortices are like wheels, and they called chakras in some traditions. And those vortices, they have a different speed with different wavelengths, of course, different colors. So they are like a vertical points through which we exchange energy and information with these octaves, with these nested octaves that we're going to see here on the right, making the ninth level of consciousness. Now, in the external, in the macrocosmos, we can see a black hole like a vertical point through which these octaves of energy are interconnected. They communicate. Current is flowing through these vertical points because a current prefers to flow in these vertical points at the center because on the circumference, the speed is very high. We have radial speed, which is moving radially, and it will be like not opposing the direction of the current. So the current prefer to flow in the center. When we have a tornado, we have the eye of the storm where it's perfect peace, okay? There is no resistance there, there is no movement. And this is why the current prefer to flow in that point where we have lower speed, so there is no resistance. And the current will always flow to the path of least resistance. So when we're talking about the 9 levels of consciousness, they represent different octaves. The first one of them in the center, the very, very center is the most dense of all. It's actually our physical body. It is like a gate. It is the most solid system or octave. Octave is a group of resonant speeds, okay? And then it's our thoughts, emotions, beliefs. Those are different octaves, different spheres, shells with less density, higher frequency, and also higher speeds. So the more we go to the circumference, we have a bigger octaves with higher speed and less density. Then, so in the 9 levels of consciousness, we have individual consciousness, collective unconscious, template level of reality, higher mind in individual soul, over soul, and beyond everything, it's what we call all that is. So there is an all the time exchange of energy and information between these levels, between these octaves, and the current or the information it's flowing through these vertical points where the resistance is very low. It's a 0 point, so there is no the motion, the speed are so low that the current can flow from there. So basically,
excuse me to
yes,
interrupt.
yes.
So the 0 point field will that, I heard that term before. Would that be that explanation what the 0 point field is?
Yes, the 0 point field actually happens in the 2 points. The one is at the center, where we talked in the previous session, which is the point of potential. Okay, and the other point that happens, the second 0 point, is on the circumference of the octave. Okay, for example, if you have an octave of energy, let's talk about our emotions. Okay, so our emotions will converge to a point inside our body, the center of our body, and this will be the 0 point, or our heart, which is at the center of the body. But when the emotions converge or they go inward, they compress, and this is the 0 point at the center. But then they have to expand, they have to find an expressions, and when the energy moving outward and reach the circumference of the octave or the sphere, thus then it starts to circle and going backward. So when it's moving towards the center, it's decelerating, it's moving in the straight line, and it's subject to closure. It's going like a time field, it's going like creating a potential energy, it's storing at the center. And this is one of the 0 points, yes. And then when it's expressing out, it will express to the degree of how big is that potential. Okay, if you have big potential, you will express much further circumference. And when it's going out and reach the limit of that expression, then it's transformed again and it's moving backwards. So it's oscillating in and out. So there are two 0 points. One is at the center and one is at the circumference of the octave, where the energy going in, and in the center it's going out. So this is,
that makes sense.
Yeah, there are two 0 points, and they are not how to say, they are not static. They are dynamic points. Even though they are 0 points of energy, it's a bit tricky to talk about, because when we talk a 0 point of energy, we imagine that something is cancelled, something is zero, but actually there is dynamic processes of transformation happening when the fields are separated inside. Okay, so in the next slide, we can see that the 5 law of existence, some of you maybe are familiar. The fourth the fifth law, actually, not the fourth. The fifth law says that everything change except the first four laws. So it means that the change is constant. Everything is in a constant change. It's not static. And because the change is constant, it's inevitable, then everything is in a constant motion. When we have something in motion, we have force. So this motion, it's have a response from the space and time fields, from this corpuscular field, and then the response will form the space torus. So the space torus, I underline here this with a red. It's very important to know that this does not move with the object or with the signal, okay? It is created in instances. In particular instances, it's like the movie strip, the strip of a movie where you have different frames. So each frame is distinguished from one from the other, but many of them in a sequence, they create the illusion of motion, okay? So this is happening with the space torus. It's every sequence, a new space torus is created again, 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 and again, and it's not traveling with the object or with the signal. This is a very important to know. So this,
would that
yes?
be the same to say it's self-perpetuating?
This it will relate. Yeah, you're picking up very. This it will relate to what we're going to discuss after with the Newton's laws of motion, and specifically with momentum, what we call momentum. Because when we have a traveling object, this space torus, it's because it's created in a sequence. The old space torus, okay, imagine that you have something that is flying. It creates one space torus here, and then another one here, and then another one. And the old ones, they will expand because they have a specific pressure inside, so they will expand. And this expansion, actually, it will help to move the object further, so it will propel, in a sense, the object. So this, it will create momentum. The object will build momentum because the space torus, they will expand and they will create a sequence behind the object, and these pressure waves, they will move actually the object even further. So they will keep the direction of the object in the same direction. But this is what we're going to discuss in another videos. But yes, this is relating to momentum. Is this answering the question, or it is slightly different what you have in mind?
No, it's good. I like the answer.
Okay.
So
yeah.
keep it going.
So
I'm listening. Very interesting.
Yeah, when we're talking about the space torus, okay, because it's created in a sequence, and when something is traveling, it will have many space toruses created. They are called space tori. We're going to call it space tori, or this is a plural for many of the space torus. We're going to call it space tori. Okay, and let me see if I may. Yeah, this is the so this space torus could be mechanical or electrical. Okay, as mechanical, it's very important to know the speed of that space torus. And as electrical, it's very important also to know the frequency, because electrical, when we have an electrical aspect, then we're going to have a speed of light, which is a constant speed. And when the speed is constant, we need to know the frequency, the timing. Okay, the timing we need to know in order to create a resonance matching this timing. But when it's mechanical, we need to know also the speed, because the speed can vary. It can be slow, faster, and so on. So when we have any kind of particle, no matter what, if there is any kind of mass, it's usually a subject to, we're gonna call it it is a time field predominant energy, because we say in the previous workshop that the time field is a bonding force. It's a subject to closure. So it's store the things in a point. It's collecting the things in a point. It creates accretion. This accretion creates higher density. This higher density creates more mass. And when we have more mass, if you put it in the forceful field, like our gravitational field, we're going to have extra weight. So anytime you see something that is very heavy, high density, this means that it will be time field predominant substance, okay? And when you see something that is very light with high buoyancy, usually it will go to the scale of the space field of the space field aspect, in a sense, because light things with less weight, they can travel with faster speed, okay? So imagine we have a photon have no mass at all, and we say that the photon can travel with the speed of light, okay? Because it can travel with the speed of light, it can cross vast distances of space, and this is why it's space field predominant particle or substance. If something is very heavy, we cannot move it. It's very difficult to move it or to travel distance. It will have tendency to stay in one location for a long period of time, okay? If this make any sense. So when we have particle in motion, usually it will be made out of some kind of substance, and it will have some kind of time field predominant aspect within that particle, okay? So any traveling particle will solicit a response from the space field or the space-time field through which it's traveled, because we said that the space and time field is corpuscular field made out of corpuscles, and they have a certain pressure, which is the space field around the point of potential have a certain pressure. So it is very important when we're talking about forces to understand the difference between scalar and vector quantities. This is very important. And I will share this for those of you who don't know, maybe you know, but the scalar quantities are those who have magnitude, and they do not have a direction. They have size and amount, like energy, speed, electric charge, mass, time, distance, area. We give some examples. And from the other side, when we're talking about vector quantities, they have always a specific direction. Okay, they have a direction that we know. That's why vector quantities, they have arrows usually which point that direction where they go. For example, energy, it's kind of radiation. It radiates equally in all, let's say, in all directions. But when we have force, this means that this energy it's focused and it's traveling in a particular direction, and thus then it's a force. So it have a vector quantities. So we can give an example with a mass. For example, the mass is measured with kilograms. Maybe you are 60 kilograms, and if you go in an open space, you will float there. You won't experience your weight. You will be weightless, have zero weight. But if these 60 kilograms, you come on Earth, you have here a gravitational field, which is a forceful field. This field is accelerating with 9.8 meters per second. It's a vector field. Okay, it's traveling towards the Earth, and it will push these 60 kilograms or 70 kilograms in this example, and it will create force. And the force, we measure it with newtons, okay? It's going to be approximately 686 Newton of force your body, it will exhibit on the surface of the Earth. So this is how mass with vector force can, with gravitational field, can create a vector expression, the vector quantities. Now, this is very, very important for us because we're going to see how these vectors are moving and what they are creating, those forces. So in this slide, we're going to talk about the first aspect of the space torus. This is the direction of travel or the central axis through which the space torus, the object is traveling or the signal is traveling. And this is the red arrow here that is going to show us. Now, on the left here, we have energy, which is scalar, already we said, and motion. When we add motion to energy, we have force. Okay? We have direction. So energy in motion or emotion. So what we do usually in our meditation, or what I'm doing in my meditation, is I'm building a little bit of energy by focusing my mind, my presence inside the body. Okay, and this is energizing my body because the energy flow, whereas the intention goes. And once we have more energy in the body, then we can move it with intention. We can put direction. We can create different emotions, positive or negative, depends. And this is a force. Okay, so we can create force from something that is scalar. When we have intention and direction, we create actually something that is vector based. And so this is a force. Okay, so you can see the formula for force here. Also, it's mass multiplied by acceleration. So you remember that a few minutes ago, we talking about that the time field create accretion, create higher mass, higher densities. But acceleration, it's opposite. It create higher speeds. Okay, that's why I put it in blue, because it relates to space. The more acceleration you have, more distance you travel, more space you experience, okay? And the more mass you have, more time you experience. The higher is the tendency to spend time in duration in one place, okay? So mass and acceleration, or mass and speed, are just two aspects of time field and space field. And this is the Einstein formula. But before we talk about this, this is the formula for 1 Newton, or for 1 Newton of force. 1 Newton is equal to 1 kilogram of mass. Okay, when you move it 1 meter for 1 second, when it's traveling 1 meter for 1 second, this is equal to 1 Newton of force. Okay. So in an Einstein formula for general relativity, he said that energy is equal to the mass multiplied by the speed of light squared. Okay, so we have mass, or something that is time field predominant, and from the other side we have a space field predominant unit, which is the speed of light, which is the highest speed, okay, in our universe. So it's just like multiplication between time field and space field. You multiply one to the other and you have an energy as a result. And this formula also can be seen as a triad or trinity, the same way that the Ohm's law can be seen. So if you see energy, if it's on the top, if you multiply the mass by the speed of light, you have the energy. But at the same time, if you divide the energy on the mass, you will have this unit. And also, if you divide the energy of the speed of light, you will have the mass. So it's working, they are interconnected. Okay, if you change one, the other two also will be different, will change. Okay, and in the Ohm's formula, also you can see that the current is in the red color, and the resistance is in the blue. So the current is something that is a time field predominant. It's moving in the straight line. You can remember that the time field, it has the ability to pull in the straight line, while the space field is pushing like a wind. Okay, so when we have a current, and this current, it will face some kind of resistance, or it will face some kind of space field. They serve as a barrier to each other. Usually, if you watch the first workshop, you will remember that they serve a barrier to each other. They will not annihilate or repel each other, but they can divert each other. Okay, so when you have a higher resistance and the current has to flow, then it will result in a higher voltage. Okay, it will create a bigger torus, but we're gonna see exactly how this is going to happen just in a bit. So there we have, this is a space, a time corpuscle, or from the corpuscular field, and then we have force moving here, traveling object, or a current, or a signal. And this space field corpuscle will have some kind of pressure of the spatial sphere. At the time field, it will be diverged. It will be bend it in this direction, it will start to circle that way, and it will create what we call a circuit loop. Okay, and this circuit loop, it will have a dynamic center or radial center or center point. Okay, it will always form a center point, and from this center point, as you remember from the beginning, we say that in the center the current is flowing at the center point, and this current always flow with the right hand rule. Okay, so if the time field is moving in that way, which is a clockwise, okay, if we point it with the with our fingers of our right hand, then the thumb, it will show us from where the current it will flow, and we can see that another one loop will be created, but this time not axially like this. This is axial loop because it's following the direction of the axis. It will be created radially, and you will see it in the next slide. So a vortex, the definition of vortex is that it's a loop enclosing a field, and this is a loop that encloses a field. Okay, so the center of the vortex is where the current flow, we say already that, and it's following the right hand rule. So where do you think the current it will flow here if it's following the right hand rule? Okay, if we point these arrows right here with our right hand, with the fingers of our right hand, then this finger, the thumb, it will show where the current it will flow. Okay, and let's see it on the other direction. Okay, it will flow this way. Can you see? Can you see that it will also develop? Okay, this kind of motion here, it will develop at this kind of motion, and this time radially. Okay.
You mean that it will be upward motion, upward towards, or?
So when
I don't get it.
Yeah, yes, no, it's okay. No problem. I need to read this 20, 30 times in order to understand. So if you get it from the first time, it will be amazing. So we have a force that is traveling, which is, we say that is time field predominant, let's say, force, because it's like a vector traveling in a straight line. Okay, but this force, it will meet the corpuscular field, which has certain pressure. We have space field corpuscles, and part of this force, it will be like diverted sideways. Okay, and because the time field have the ability to recognize the tail, to bite its own tail like the Ouroboros symbol, it will create loops around this vector force. It will create loops in that direction. Okay, they will rotate clockwise if the force is moving upward. Okay, but every time we have a loop, okay, this loop, it means that it's also a vortex. Okay, and when you have a vortex, we said that the current prefer to flow at the center of the vortex, where the speeds are very, very low. Okay, so if something is rotating this way, okay, and you point it with your right hand with the fingers, this means that from the center, from this center, the current, it will go that way. Okay, you see my right hand, if it's rotating like this, so the finger, it's also pointing where the current, it will develop from the center of this vortex. If you want to receive energy, for example, with your third eye, okay, you can rotate the fields this way, okay, counterclockwise, seeing from your perspective. So the current, it will flow to your head. If you want to send energy or information from your brain, from your third eye, you rotate it clockwise. So the current, it will flow out of you. Okay.
And I get it.
You get it?
This
so
is amazing.
Yeah.
And because of when you have vortex and the point, it's a 0 point, the current prefer to flow, and following the right hand rule, this circuit loop, it will create another loop which is perpendicular. And we call this perpendicular loop, we call it an orbit, because it's like an orbit of our planets, okay? Circling the sun. So when you see here on the left, you see here the solar, our sun. From our sun, there are huge circuit loops, okay? Huge circuit loops, which are very, very big, okay? And at the center of each loop, you can see this loop is a loop A, and you can see at the center of this loop, there is an orbit, which is orbit A, which is passing through the center. And usually at the center of those loops, there are radial paths going towards the center, and they can create point of accretion. In our case here, because we're talking about big, huge circuit loops, they create planets, okay? They create big celestial bodies, okay? They create these accretions, okay? So you can see that loop B have also center, and this center is close to the source. Okay, loop C is the smaller and have also at the center another orbit. You can see that in this particular example, the time field is moving downward, or it's moving counterclockwise. All right, and if you put your finger of the right hand, you will see the thumb. Your thumb, it will show the direction, which is this direction here, which is the direction how the planets actually moving. So when you combine these orbits with these circuit loops, you will have this image here, which is the space torus. Okay, it will look something like that. All right, and so when we have a current, electrical current flowing from top to the bottom, okay, by using the right-hand rule, you will see that it will develop also time field lines, which will move in this direction, clockwise. And our compass, if you put compass, you will see that the compass, it will follow this direction. It will say that that's the north. The arrow of the compass will be aligned with this. We call it a flux line, or magnetic flux line. Okay, so it is.
Is there always free?
No, there can be many. Okay, if it's the current, if the current is very strong, you will have many circuit, many orbits. In each orbit, it will move time field. It will move in one direction, and always the space field will move in the other direction. But in order to understand this even better, I make a video for you, which you can see the flow. Actually, what actually is going on, just to visualize it better for you. Now you can see we have force moving upward, and we see that there are circuit loops forming in that direction, okay? With this in the same direction as the force move. Those circuit loops, okay, they create this orbit here, which is following the right-hand rule. And this is the result. Okay, now we are seeing the time field. Now, a space field always move in the opposite direction. Okay, so space field will move opposite. It will move always opposite to time field, always. So it will move in that direction, and also at the orbit, where is the orbit? Where is the equatorial plane? It will move in the opposite direction, because space and time field, they are equal in strength and opposite in direction. So this is basically the flow, and this it will create the space torus. When you have a space torus, this will be the vector forces that are moving inside, that are blending, if you want, inside, that they are created within the space torus. This will be the dynamic inside of those vector forces that are moving. Okay. So,
Casimir,
yeah, yes.
What is the manifestation of the space field, for example, with a bullet traveling? With a bullet traveling, what is the manifestation of the space field, and what is the manifestation of the time field, since they have opposite direction?
When you have a bullet traveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when you have a bullet, when before the bullet start to travel, you have in the gun, you have a something that will have to create an explosion. Okay, so you have an explosion, you have a huge amount of pressure. And when you're talking about pressure, always that's the space field in action, because space field is pressure in action. So this pressure will make the bullet be shoot in one direction. Okay, and 1 second, I can show you if actually directly from the book, if you give me just a second to see, because this is example, this example with the bullet, it's perfect to explain what is momentum. Just give me 1 second to find the exact, I have here, I will open it. This was something that I thought to create in the future workshops to explain the Newton's law of motion, but it's okay because you ask now. Let's talk about this. So this is the bullet, all right? Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. So when the bullet is traveling, this, if you stand in front of the bullet, you will see these orbital paths. Okay. Now the time field is moving counterclockwise, and the space field is moving in the opposite direction. In this case, it's clockwise. Okay. When you see the bullet from the side, you will see the space field. You see it's curving in opposite direction because the time field or the force of the bullet is in this direction from left to right. Okay. But what happens is that this space torus and this space torus behind the bullet, they will be separated because there is a certain pressure here. All right. And this pressure, it will make the bullet continue in the same direction because the pressure, it will expand behind the bullet, and this expansion, it will push the bullet in the same direction that is already traveled. So not only the initial pressure from the gun, it will perpetuate the bullet, but also the space tori after that are created, they will also perpetuate the motion, and this is what we call momentum. Okay, this is why the Newton says that if an object is moving in one particular direction, if it's not interrupted, it will continue to move in that direction. Okay, but also very important that not only this, but this orbital pressure, let's say it will be like a pressure gradient, it will create a centrifugal force. It will envelop the bullet in a pressure tori or bubbles, and it will create this effect around the bullet. Okay, so imagine yourself, you enter this tunnel made out of wheels of the car, of the tiers of the car, and you enter inside, and it will be very difficult for you to bend left or right. Okay, because they are like insulation, they are like they're preventing you to move left or right. So this space field that will be created in the like orbits that we say, it will prevent, so if the bullet is traveling this way, so the space field will move backward, but also it will move this way, and this it will create a pressure around the bullet, pressure waves, which will keep the bullet to move in the same direction. In order to divert the bullet, you need some kind of force. Okay.
I think I see. Yeah.
Yeah, we can continue with this. So in the case of an electrical current, it's the same thing. So if we have the right hand, this is called the Ampere's law. So when the current it's moving in the direction of our thumb, then the magnetic response, it will be with our fingers, okay, of the right hand. okay? And this response, it will be a north, okay? North, when we have north, always we know that time field is moving. Where is the north, or it's exiting the north pole of the magnet. So in the same way, here, when we have a solenoid, when we have a coil or of some sort, then we have the opposite effect. We move the current around in the orbital paths, and this it will create a magnetic flux line, which will be through the center. Okay, it works both ways. You can see in this third image that it works both ways. If the current is moving in one direction, then the magnetic flux, it will follow the right-hand rule. Okay, it will follow the fingers. If the magnetic field is moving, or magnetic flux is moving in one direction, then the current, it will follow the right-hand rule again. So this is very important because it can help us to separate the space and time fields, kind of separate. They cannot be really separated, but we can create polarities, different poles, okay? We have different predominances. So from this north side, or the north pole, the time field will exit, and from the south, the space field will exit because they're moving in the opposite direction, right? So we have more space field predominant part here and more time field predominant part here. And this is what happens if we create a toroid. If we coil a wire around the, let's say, iron core or ferrite core, it will create the same dynamics. You can see the wire, how it's winded, and
would that be a tensor ring? A tensor ring is a toroid?
Yes. So you create a dipole because you have orbital paths here and circuit loops here. So the time field has to exit from one side of the configuration and has to enter from the other side. So every time from one side you will have vector fields exiting, and from the other side they will enter. But when they enter, because the space field is always moving in the opposite direction, the space field will exit from the south and will enter from the north. So this is what creates predominances, okay? And this is what creates a dipole, okay? Two different poles. And this is also can create a capacitance, because a capacitor is a dipole. We have positive and negative. If you have any questions, I would like to show you the next slide, which is this is the bar magnet toroidal field, how it's created, why the magnets are attracting and repelling. Scientists maybe don't know yet this. They know what they do, how to produce electricity, but they do not really understand what is the attraction and repelling force of the magnets, what actually caused this. So when you have a substance, when you have a structure, you have different substances, they have different kind of structures. When they can have a crystalline structure, which is the first one, which is very geometrically perfect. It's divided very symmetrically, okay? It can have polycrystalline structure, which can be different section of the substance can be harmonically divided, but there are many different sections combined together, like this picture here. And you have amorphous structure, which is a complete mess. Everything is a random side, okay? So in the iron, usually in the iron and some other substances, materials, they have crystalline structures. And this crystalline structure in the iron, it's a cubic crystalline structure. So it's a very precise range in the cubic structure. So there are different pathways, different highways that they can be created between the atoms, because the iron may seem that is very solid, but there is a plenty of empty space between the atoms inside, between the atomic structure. There is a plenty of space, okay? And this space, it's full with space and time fields. And when the atoms, they oscillate, they vibrate, they act like a propellers of this space-time field and guide it, push it in one particular direction, Okay, it's like they propel these space and time fields in one particular direction, and this is what creates these orbits, these loops that we talked about earlier. So the force of the magnet actually is created from the atomic spin. Okay, so let me see if I missed something here. Okay, the cubic structure of the iron allow the direction flow. Yes, because they are in the straight lines. The space-time field flows through the magnet at the rate of the atomic thrust. Okay, so depends how fast those atoms oscillate or move. It will determine the speed of these loops that will form, that we call magnetic flux lines. Okay, and then we have the shape and the spin of the atoms in the iron bar magnet determine the field's direction preference. So always the time field, when it's exiting, we will measure with our equipment that this is the north pole of the magnets, always. The number of atomic lines and the density strength. So if we have more atoms inside, more high density, each of them will create one pathway or one loop, and then we have more dense magnetic flux. This structure could be not only cubic, it can be also other. There are other substances that can be used to create magnets nowadays, like neodymium and other. They can be different structures, but they need to be crystalline structures. They need to be symmetrically arranged in order the flow to follow one direction, to be congruent, the flow to be congruent. Okay.
Does it need to, Casimir? Does it need to be the iron absolutely, or even every other material, if they are aligned in the crystalline way, they will produce?
They will produce. You can mix several elements like neodymium, cobalt, nickel, and stuff like that. So if they have if the flow is compatible, if they have the same direction of the crystalline structure, the oscillation of the atoms, it will naturally guide these space and time fields in one direction. Okay, and when they exit, this will be the north pole, and they will enter from the south pole, the time field vector lines. Okay, but you can see here in the next image. So we have, let's say, two magnets like here. We have north to south, and we're going to have here they're going to attract. Okay, but the attraction will happen because from the north, from this magnet, we're going to have time field lines moving from left to right, like this vector here, and this vector following the right-hand rule. You see that we'll have orbital also rotation, or orbits that will rotate in this way. Okay, so in the other magnet we have a south, and also from the south we say that the time field entering the south, so the direction of the time field of the south magnet will be the same like this. So they have the same direction, these time field vector lines, and they have not only the same direction but the same spin. Okay, the orbital spins are in the same direction, and because they are in the same direction, they can move together, and this create attraction because they have compatible spin. They move in the same direction. If you have two norths, north to north, then you're going to have this situation here. You have time field lines, vector lines, forces exiting from the north. You have another one, forces with the same speed exiting from the other north, both of them opposing, and both of them have different spin. One is clockwise, the other is counterclockwise, so they cannot find agreement. They cannot join, they cannot interfere with each other, they cannot merge with each other in a sense. Okay, and this it will create a repulsion because it's very difficult for them. If they have opposite direction, the same speed, opposite direction, and different speeds. Okay, so this is what will happen. Also, when you have two souths, south and south, the space field will exit from both poles and also will repel because it's not able to create these compatible spins. These compatible spins are actually what create the attraction and the repulsion of the magnets. So this is how we can use the space torus in order to understand those forces of the magnetic flux. And when you have a compatible spin, let's say south with north, they will join together and they will create a one congruent whole magnet, which will have common equatorial plane. The loops will join and they will start to circle around. So they will join and they will create so-called overtone. Okay, something bigger, the same thing but bigger. Okay, and this is what we use in order to produce electricity. And you will see in the next slide how we produce electricity with this idea. What actually is electricity? What actually is the current that we're producing? Okay, but
Are you talking electricity in general now, or do you mean like in terms of free energy?
No, I mean in terms of conventional current, how we produce
Conventional.
because we are rotating big magnets, we're using steam and other sources to rotate, to have some kind of mechanical motion in order to create an electrical motion, to create from mechanical force, we convert it into electrical force. But we are using this idea here of these spins and these radial points that they happen on the equatorial plane. And let me share with you the next. So this is one magnet, okay? We have the north on the bottom and we have south on the top. So from the north, we say that the time field exit, it's running like this. This is the black arrows and it's entering the south and it's moving that way, okay? And the space field is exiting from the south and it's actually spiraling around these lines, moving in the opposite direction, entering here, and it's going in the opposite way, okay? And this is our circuit loops or magnetic flux that we call. But we know also that because of the right-hand rule, they create this kind of orbits. So in each orbit, because these flux lines, it's very important to know that they actually are like spheres, but they are in such a compression, in such high pressure that they look like two-dimensional. They look like a flat spheres. And in the first workshop, when we talk about the space-time corpuscles, we say that in the sphere there are radial paths. We say that they are they call radii in English. And they always have a point of potential in the center. So these circuit loops, they will have a radial center in the equatorial plane. In the center of each loop will have a radial center. It will be a point of potential. This is the vertical points that we're talking about the first slide. And these vertical, radial centers, they will move according to the right-hand rule. In this case, in this image, because the time field is exiting from the north and entering from the south, they will move in this way, which is clockwise, okay? But if we have something to change these loops to move in the other direction, those center points will start to rotate oppositely. They will start to rotate counterclockwise. So when we have magnets, when we have engine that produce electricity, we have magnets which are oriented like this in alternating polarity, south, north, south, north, south, north. And we have some kind of coil and with maybe iron core or air core, doesn't matter. But this red, it's the copper wire around the iron core, okay? So imagine that this is a coil here, and we have one magnet, which is north top. So this north top, it will take the time field, it will move it upward, okay? And because there is permeability, you know, there is a permeability with the coil and with the iron core in this case. The flux lines from the magnet, from the iron, which has a cubic structure, which is aligned, which has crystalline structure, it will follow the same flow. So we're going to create flow if we have this arrangement in the core of the magnet pointing upward. And this, it will create this kind of spin around the core, where is our electrical wire made out of copper. Okay, so the centers, they will start to move in this way. They will start to move counterclockwise, seen from above. But when next magnet is entering the coil, it will have the opposite direction. Okay, here the time field or the north is pointing down, so it will change the flow. And when these centers are changing from one direction to another, they are shocked and they are released in a sense, in a way, and they can be guided like slaves through a grounded wire, because they're looking for ground. They are looking to ground themselves. Okay, so there are two conditions. We need the circuit loops rise and fall. We can create by changing the magnets and creating different flow axially up and down, and radially left and right, or clockwise, counterclockwise. And this, it will shock these centers, which are formed in the middle of each circuit loops, and will create, it will release, in a sense, an electrons in that way. So you can see here, electron particles are formed in the center of the circuit loops of iron magnets. Okay, the center form rings of so they are formed, and in order for us to kick them out of their comfort zone, we need to change their direction left and right, so they can be released. And when we release enough of them, they start to flow to the wire, and we have a current, more current. Okay, because the current is how much electrons can move for a specific period of time through a specific, let's say, thickness of the wire. Okay, so this is how actually using this idea in order to release. If we change this core, if we put quartz crystal here, we will have different effects. We will change the quanta. These radio centers will have different energy, different quantas, maybe not to produce electricity, but can be used for other purposes. So this is very important. So when we change the core,
what purpose would that be?
It can be a communication, for example. Okay, you can send maybe a signal or for a very, very vast distance, because the quartz crystal have this. Also, it has a structure which is perfectly, it's tetrahedral structure. But I do not yet want to talk about this, because it's something also that I explore. But it was something that was used in Atlantean times, in the ancient civilization. They were using a quartz crystal in that way. And we can build, Bashar explained that we can build beams of energy by using quartz crystals, winded with a copper wire. Okay, so it can be other purposes. They didn't explain what exactly in the book. They say, imagine with your mind what kind of quanta they can create, what kind of energy, how we feel. So they give this open to us to discover. But when you change the core where these forces are moving, it has to be a crystalline structure organized, to create a flow. But different structures will create different effects, and these radio centers will have different quanta of energy and can have different applications as well. So it's something that we need to explore. And so this is very interesting about the Space Torus. Now, you can see here from the top, and here is the side view, orthographic view. So we have we say that we have a circuit loops, that they're axial, they're following the axis, and we have also orbits which are in the equatorial plane, like orbits, they are radially moving. So when both of them combine, they will have a resultant. So you will have this spiraling also effect, okay? Because one is moving up like that and the other moving around. So both of them, when they combine, it will have a twist of the torus. So the torus, it will look like a twisted, okay, around. This twisted version is because both axially and radially forces create some kind of combination and resultant between each other, okay? So when something is traveling, it will shock this corpuscular field and it will create this space story. They will expand, depends how much is the potential. If you have a lot of potential here, they will expand a lot bigger, they will be huge, and this will determine the voltage or the amplitude. And if they happen very often, very frequently, this will determine what is the frequency. So we have here three sequences of the space torus or space tori, we call it. And we have all of them, they rotating this way, okay, because the current is moving from left to right. But because this thing happens very quickly, very rapidly, okay, and they will create something that looks like a spiral in three-dimensional plane. They will, in a sense, merge. This spin, it will exit from behind and will enter here, and it will create something like a spiral, okay? And when we measure with our equipment, with our oscilloscopes, this three-dimensional spiral, it will look like a sine wave. So when we measure voltage and current, we are measuring the size of the space torus, which is the voltage, what is the diameter of the space torus, and how often it happens for 1 second. It will determine what is the frequency. So we can see, we say we have higher voltage, it means that the space torus is big, okay, because the diameter is big, so the amplitude is growing. And when the frequency is high, this space torus, it will be even very flat, very compacted, and it will have a high frequency. This is just kind of analogy, but with our oscilloscopes, we are measuring in the equatorial plane. You already see that we have a time field and space field moving in the other side. Our equipment is designed to register only the time field vectors, okay? So with our oscilloscope, we measure actually the direction of the time field, which create this kind of spiral, and in two-dimensional plane, it looks like a sine wave. So basically, this is most of what I would like to say. We can talk about this idea of the space torus maybe for hours, because there are everything that you can imagine we can relate to this space torus idea and use the space torus to explain. But I believe for now it's more than enough. And if you have any questions, if you want to clarify something, and I will be absolutely glad to do that, so far.
You talked about the measurement. We only had the one measuring which one did you say? The time field.
The time field, yes.
And is there
yes?
Is there any technologies that measuring the space field as well?
Not yet. Only maybe because the space field is like a pressure. The only way maybe we can measure the space field yet with our technology, it's most probably with something that we measure the barometric pressure, okay, the pressure in the atmosphere, okay. But in the future, I'm sure that we're going to have different equipments, very sensitive, in order to measure this kind of fields. But even with the oscilloscope, when we measure the flow of the time field, these orbits that they're in a sequence, it's enough for us to know the frequency, to know the amplitude, how big is the space torus, and so on and so forth. But I have here charts. Maybe I will share it later, because they're like different substances, different aspects of both fields. Because when we're talking about a temperature, also temperature, it's a field activity. Okay, when you have a cold, something that is very cold, let's say ice, the ice is subject to closure. Its time field predominant substance has very lower frequency. It's subject to closure because it's very dense, it's compacted, the energy is stored there in one place. Okay, when you heat the ice, then the energy start to be, let's say, floating. You have water, okay, you have different octave, okay, of that substance. And if you heat it more, then you're going to create more pressure, more space fields, higher vibration of the molecules. They will start to vibrate higher vibration. They will heat because it will have more friction, and this it will expand and eventually become steam. Okay, so the steam, it needs more space. It will expand. It will create pressure. This is how we use the steam back then to create the locomotives, the steam turbines, okay? Because the steam expands and create higher pressure. So when we're talking about hot temperatures, we say that they are a space field predominant because they expand, they have more kinetic force. And when something is cold, it's a time field predominant, lower frequency, more density, and stuff like this. So if we understand this idea, we can also understand what we can eat in our daily life in order to be more, let's say, space predominant foods, which help us to feel lighter, more active in a sense, not so heavy, not so dense. And to jump, as Bashar explained, in a different density, this is very important because it can allow us, to clean the body and to proceed to these energies. Because when you feel love and when you feel gratitude, it is better your body to be also compatible, to be in alignment with this higher vibration and to be more space field predominant. These pyramids, when they built in Egypt and other places, they are actually structures that they create different vortices inside, okay? And these vortices create current flow, and a space field can be experienced inside in the other direction. It was like falling from the apex of pyramid down, and inside where there are people, they can experience it, they can expand, like their consciousness can expand, or also if they have some kind of substance, it's very difficult to rotten or to dissolve. That's why they bury the mummies in such a kind of structures, because they prevent them for a long time not to disintegrate because of the space field. So there are many different aspects we can talk, but basically in this video, just wanted to share how the repulsion and attraction are happening between the magnets and how the space torus relate to these ideas, how the space torus relate. And anything else, for example, this idea can be used, I'm using it like during meditations. Okay, so as I said, we can build energy within our body when we focus, no matter in which part of the body, we can build energy, which is a scalar expression or force. But then if you direct this energy to a person, if you send this energy like love to somebody or gratitude to somebody, you become the conduit through which this force is passing through. And as conduit, you receive from the same property with this energy. You merge with this energy, with the same speed, with the same force, and you experience it as well. So the more you send, the more actually you experience it, and the more you actually in alignment with this, and more you receive from the same energy, from the same quantity. And this is very important for some people who are curious to understand.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Do you use this information in terms of the meditation to heal wounded parts in your body? Have you been successful?
Yes. Because it's not only transformation that happens when you direct this kind of forces, because the biggest force, okay, in the existence is the unconditional love, because it's express the equality between positive and negative. It does not judge. Okay, so when sending the intention, when sending a love to anybody, doesn't matter who, maybe can be even your pet dog, but if you send love through you, you take from the same quality. You match the speed and you match the direction. Okay, and then not only transformation happen, but also something that is called transmutation in the physical level, in our hormones, physically, there are huge things that happening. All the hormones start to change. I experiencing it like tears, which the negative beliefs and definitions, they run away with the tears. That's now every day for the last maybe 7 or 10 days. And many other things. My face start to be a different color. I couldn't recognize sometimes myself when I see in the mirror, just from 1 or from 2 meditations. So this is a very powerful, because if we know how to work with these vector forces, they can be used not only mechanically or electrically for engineering, but we can literally experience this through our bodies. Okay, because the bigger octaves, bigger octaves, which is all that is, it is a self-conscious, and it's acknowledging all the small and big parts which are part of itself. It cares about each part. Okay, it has the intention to balance and to give and to nourish each part. So if we want to, let's say, if we have intention to serve other people, we are directly in alignment with this huge force, with all that is, because have the same intention, it have the same direction. Okay, and if we do it with love or with gratitude, then we match the frequency, because it's unconditional love. It's very high frequency. Okay, if we match the frequency, if we match the direction, and if we have no expectation whatsoever, we will have no resistance at all. You have no insistence, you have no resistance. So the energy can flow very, very easy, very rapidly through you, like a superconductor. Then you have the same impedance. Okay, when you have the same impedance, then it starts to flow. And you have the same direction, the same frequency, the same impedance. And guess what? This energy passing through you, you experience the same thing. You become that energy, you expand, and everything that is not made out of this energy start to run away. It start to vanish, to be dissolved, disintegrated, but in a very gentle, very soft way, very powerful, very, very intelligent way. It's dissolved, in the body, and also in the mind, in the emotions, in all different levels.
Okay. Yeah, it makes actually it makes perfect sense. My question is that maybe I'm wrong here, but my understanding from our nature of the body is that we are somewhat programmed to a certain form, right? So let's say I get an injury.
Yes.
And from my understanding, I know that the body is always healing itself, renewing itself.
Yes.
Like the same cells that I had 10 years ago are not the same that I have now.
That's right. Yes.
So it's basically this force of unconditional love. It's releasing the programs. Let's say I have an injury in my knee.
Yes.
So I attained some stuck energy there that programmed it differently. And therefore it's expressing in a certain injury.
Yes. Absolutely.
So this energy is reprogram it to basically restore it to the natural state. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, this is exactly what you say. It's described in the book like the law of renewal, or the law of balance. Okay, because all that is, it's always seeking the balance. It's seeking to balance, to nourish itself. And the moment you have injury, there are many different programs are activated in order for you to find balance as soon as possible. When something it's dying in the forest, from what is remaining, it will create some kind of nourishment for grass or for trees to grow. This is a law of renewal, because nothing can be lost okay, in existence. Nothing can stop existing, can change only form. But yes, this what you describe is the law of renewal. The law of renewal is actually one of the most important things for us to understand in order to create this kind of technologies, because the prototypes that we're working and that we are talking here, they are systems of energy renewal. Okay, the energy goes out, then it comes back with interest. It comes back, it's expanding, it's gaining speed. When something is gaining speed, it's gaining energy, and then it's converging and it's coming to the center to bring what it was gained from before. But what you describe is it's the law of love. This is the law of renewal. It's always present. It's always present. Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm so glad I attended today. I'm
Yeah,
very
me too.
grateful.
Me too. We're going to make another workshops that we're going to work more spiritually with this kind of ideas to make meditation and to see, and for people to see how easy it is to use these ideas and to experience them, because we can create many different technologies. But if we do not experience this idea with our hearts, like love and gratitude and compassion, no matter what kind of technology we're going to create, it will bring nothing else but more hubris to the society. Okay, so.
And I guess we already done that experience before in
Yes.
humanity with Atlantis and.
Yes, this is what they had. They had very advanced technologies, right?
Yeah, exciting. Thank you.
I'm so glad that that you participate. And next time, maybe because I'm more drawn to the spiritual aspect now, because I have experienced this with my heart and my emotions, my mind, and it was huge transformation that happened for the last 10 days. Most probably the next workshop, it will be more focused on the spiritual side, when some people can experience this. And to see how easy it is and how beautiful is this and how powerful is this and how they can shift for one day or for 1 hour into the shoes of a completely different version of themselves. Okay, completely different, because all the versions are like the Space Torus. They are in the sequence, they are divided, they are not connected whatsoever. The connection also only happen within ourselves. So we can jump from one timeline to a completely different timeline for a very short period of time. This literally, it's time travel. Okay, so
this is fun. This is really wonderful.
Yes.
And the connection you are making with the spiritual aspect, the more you go, the more you make connection with spiritual aspect.
Yes.
So this is really
this is very important, because if we want to make even the technology, the prototypes, we need to raise the frequency to clear our perception. We can see more expanded point of view, and then we can figure it out more easy what needs to be done from the technical point of view. Okay, it's all connected. This is why Bashar said not to put the components together, but also there is an emotional part which we are seeing how you're dealing with, how actually you pursue this journey. It's not important for us only to put the components together. This is just half of the equation. The other half is to work with the heart, to work with the body. It's
right.
totally
I'm getting a call, so thank you so much, guys.
Thank you too. I will stop the session here, and we will see you maybe if you want in the next one. Very glad for you to be here. Thank you. Thank you.